Hi, Floppycatters. I'm excited to have Dr. Anna Maria Wolf today. She is the founder of Pet Synergy and brings a unique blend of veterinary expertise and holistic approaches to animal wellness. Her work emphasizes the interconnectedness of physical, emotional, and environmental factors in promoting optimal pet health, offering a comprehensive and compassionate perspective. Today, Dr. Anna and I are going to discuss feline hyperesthesia syndrome. Dr. Anna, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be on the show.
Yes, I'm very excited to talk about this because I'm not sure if I shared with you, but I have a cat that had it or has it and it's in remission. I don't really know what the medical way of saying that is, but
Well, that's good. Yes, and it's quite a common problem, and it can be tricky to treat, and they definitely respond to holistic things as well. So that's the good news.
yes, that is the good news. And he was treated holistically, which I am really thankful for because I think he wouldn't still be around today if I had done it differently.
Well, that's wonderful.
Yes. Okay, so what is feline hyperesthesia syndrome? Can you talk about it in like a layman's term?
Well, it's still a little unknown. That's why they call it idiopathic, which means we don't really know the cause, although there probably is one. And so the symptoms people might see are they sometimes start with grooming and licking and just obsessive behavior, and they'll pull out their hair sometimes. And then there's also skin twitching and rippling of the skin, which is quite distinctive if you've ever seen it. So, and they
Yes.
just, yeah, overreact to touch and they're very hypersensitive, and that can make them aggressive and anxious and also, affect the weight loss and appetite and everything as well. So, even though it can start off as mild, it can escalate to the fact where it's really, it does affect their quality of life and it's stressful for them and their human who's trying to figure out what's going on.
Yes, 100%. My Charlie hat was the kind that was licking, biting, scratching. I think he slept for about 15 minutes a day, and it was just awful, and constantly attacking that back pelvis area.
And then it becomes a vicious cycle, then because they're more stressed, so then they're more anxious, and then they have
Yes.
more symptoms. So that's, an escalating problem then.
Y yes. What are some of the most common misconceptions pet owners have about feline hyperesthesia?
Well, I think some people think it's a seizure, but it's not really a seizure, but it's definitely a neurological response, I think. And I just don't think we really know the whole pathway and what's happening. Or they think it's allergies, which it also can be. So, and they could have both, and the allergies would trigger more of a reaction. So, I think it's important to rule out the other things and any underlying causes like allergies or actual seizures or anything like that. And then based on the kind of unique symptoms, then, you realize it's hyperesthesia syndrome. But a lot of times I really think people think it's just allergies.
Okay.
Yeah. Especially if it manifests in the, more in the itching and licking and everything. So.
Yes. Yes. So what you mentioned allergies, but what are some possible neurological, psychological, or dermatological, I can't say that, dermatological factors that could contribute to feline hyperesthesia syndrome?
Well, I mean, like allergies, food allergies, or environmental allergies, or even other, skin conditions like mites or mange, or even fleas is a common issue because obviously, if they have fleas and flea sensitivity, they could have that as well as hyperesthesia. So, eliminating those things and everything. And I mean, I'm not convinced it's related to, like epilepsy, but I do think there's a neurological component where everything is hyperreactive. So,
Yes.
yeah.
I've been on a feline hyperesthesia group on Facebook for several years now because it's been about 3 years for me since all that happened. And one correlating factor that I think there is between these cats is leaky gut. Would you?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a factor because that affects the whole immune system. But I do think also stress and anxiety is a huge component. So,
Okay.
And I think it's all, from a holistic perspective, connected. So, the leaky gut affects everything. And then,
Yes.
it affects behavior and stress and anxiety and, everything like that. So,
Yes. So, how do you incorporate a holistic approach when assessing a cat with suspected and feline hyperesthesia?
well, I may basically, start by ruling out other causes. And if I think there's allergies, I would do some kind of sensitivity testing for those. And if there's fleas, I would address those, holistically as well, and eliminate any other external causes. And then, make sure there's no actual physical issue that could be triggering it, like, liver or kidney disease or epilepsy or anything like that. And then you're sort of left with this idiopathic diagnosis based on the symptoms and ruling out other things.
Okay. So, what role does stress play? And can you give some examples of stress that you've heard of that have caused this or contributed to it?
Well, I mean, I definitely think, there's so many kinds of causes of stress, including, well, firstly, physical ailments, like so allergies cause stress, so it's all a vicious circle at that point too.
Yeah.
And
Yes. Yes.
yeah, and then, getting along with other animals in the household, like cats and dogs, especially other cats too, because cats are really not supposed to live in large groups. So living in large groups without big spaces and a lot of enrichment can be actually stressful for cats too.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
even if they don't get along with one other cat, that's stressful, obviously, and they all have their personalities. So,
Yes.
yeah.
Could you elaborate on the connection between diet and feline hyperesthesia?
Well, I think diet definitely is a factor as well. So they seem to do better on more anti-inflammatory diets. So, I definitely recommend raw food, although at the moment I wouldn't recommend feeding raw poultry because of, what's going on with the chickens. But I definitely think raw food helps and anti-inflammatory, diet with low carbs and also adding fish oil and things like that. And then I would, if I do sensitivity testing, then removing triggers that the animal is reacting to, which a lot of times actually is chicken and salmon, is a good idea as well. So I would definitely start by, cutting out, going to a low carb or raw food diet or whatever you're able to do for your cats. And work from there and then look at if your cat's sensitive to anything in particular, avoiding those triggers.
Do you do a saliva test or a blood test for that
I,
sensitivity?
I personally do a saliva test and a hair test for that, and I found it to be really helpful and accurate, and it does make a difference.
Yes. So like a bioresonance scan type of thing, or
Yeah, I use bioresonance testing, and I've actually found them to be better than some of the blood work that some of the other vets are using.
yes, I would agree with that because I've had both done on my cat and things that showed up in the blood work, I'm like, he's never been reactive to that. That's funny. Um, what are some complementary therapies such as acupuncture or herbal remedies that you found to be helpful in the treatment of managing?
Well, I think that, for a start, reducing stress is one important thing. So, I would do something like feel away, like pheromones to help with calming and behavioral issues. And that helps with the multi-cat household as well. So feel away is really good. So, and feline pheromones like that. So, and
Yes.
yeah, and I always would introduce like fish oil, omega-3 fatty acids for the inflammation and everything. And then also with the stress, I use bark flower remedies
Mm,
and things like that, and specific bark flower remedies for what the actual stress might be. And I'd look at the individual cat's, reaction to things and try to get more information, which flower remedies would be the most effective.
yes. Yes. Huh. Neat. Uh, how important is environmental enrichment in addressing feline hyperesthesia?
I think, I mean, that's always important for cats in general because they're very smart and they're living in kind of an unnatural environment, a lot of the time. So definitely improving, the environment, it can be helpful. So like, puzzle toys and things like that, making safe places. I mean, people who have walkways all around their house. And even if you have a lot of cats in a room, in a certain square footage, if you can make different levels and safe places for the cats to go, that makes a huge difference as well.
Yes, it does. Um, Back to the flower essences. Do you determine those based on muscle testing or just based on years of experience and what's
I
going
mean,
on with?
I'll do both. I mean, if I'm not sure, then I would do muscle testing, and if otherwise, I would just do it based on, I mean, years of experience and also intuition and getting more information about the individual, cats and find out what's going on. So, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
fair.
I mean, some cats also don't like being left alone, so that's another thing, and that would be a different flower remedy to the ones who are stressed in a multi-cat household too. So you've just got to look at everything from a whole
Yes.
perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, from a synergistic approach, yes. Hmm.
Mm.
What role do you feel that toxins in the environment play in the creation of hyperesthesia?
Well, I think they probably have to play a part because I think it's become a lot more common and it didn't used to be that common. So that makes you think there's something going on that's not, helping the situation. And we're just exposed and cats are just exposed to so many toxins now, and it's idiopathic. But how do we know there's not one toxin or one thing that's actually triggering it? We just don't know enough about it really to determine that. So,
Yeah. So can you
yeah.
talk about we talked about leaky gut a little bit, but can you talk about gut health and the importance of it and how it relates to hyperesthesia?
Well, I mean, if you've got a leaky gut, then, the whole biome of the cat is out of balance and that affects everything. So I actually recommend doing the animal biome test, which where
Mm.
you get a sample of the stool and they test it for healthy bacteria and pathogenic bacteria. And then with them and the client, we can come up with a treatment plan to actually give the cat healthy gut bacteria and also so that's the first thing I would do. So
Okay. Hmm.
and then I recommend some different supplements like Feline Comfort from Vitality Science, for example, which have herbs and supplements to help try to heal the leaky gut, basically, which takes several months a lot of the time. But it's not going
Yes.
to heal unless you have the right bacterial population in there. So.
Yes. I didn't know about that product from Vitality Science, so thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, I know it's really helpful for just healing the gut more quickly rather than just giving probiotics and enzymes, which I'll do in conjunction, obviously.
Yes. Yes.
Um,
So the next question you've answered a little bit, but maybe I'll ask it just to make it more succinct. But what diagnostic process do you follow to rule out other potential causes before diagnosing
well, I
hyperesthesia?
don't really do a lot of diagnostics because most of my clients come to me from, other vets who've done that because I do house calls.
Oh,
But yeah, I definitely do blood work, biopsy, just a full neurological exam, and that's what I would recommend normally. So
what? So you typically see folks after they've gone to a conventional vet. Is that the
yeah,
case?
most of the time I do. But I mean, I do if I see a cat with hyperesthesia and that's all they seem to have, I would just start treating them holistically. But if it looked like they needed more, diagnostic testing, I'd send them to the allopathic vet for that.
Okay. Okay. Is allopathic the same as conventional? Am I or
Yeah, allopathic is, yeah, as opposed to
allopathic?
holistic. So,
Okay. Just
yeah.
a better way to say it, maybe.
I mean, you can say it either way, but yeah.
Okay. I think in my head it will probably be conventional because I'm not that fancy, but allopathic sounds nice.
Yeah.
Um, so what are if if I have a cat that goes to an allopathic vet, and then, but I'm like, you know what? The gabapentin, the phenobarbital, everything you're giving me isn't working. I want to find someone holistic, but would you mind doing these tests before we do that? What tests are helpful to you before you meet with a patient?
Well, I mean, generally blood work and, anything that's relevant, if which may not be relevant for this particular issue, but ultrasound and, even, CAT scans or MRIs if they think there could be something underlying this condition. So, yeah. But it's
Okay.
very much just a diagnosis that's based on the symptoms and ruling out other things because there's no really diagnostic test for hyperesthesia itself. So,
Right. Is it ever a vitamin deficiency?
well, I definitely think, I often recommend vitamin E because that seems to help. I
Mm,
don't know if it's a true vitamin deficiency per se, but I recommend, well, for a start, changing the diet helps because that way they're getting more appropriate nutrients.
correct.
And I'll often add sometimes a multivitamin and extra vitamin E as well, and definitely omega-3 fatty acids too.
Yes. Yes. Which all kind of relate to skin to me, so that's interesting.
Yeah, no,
Um,
and that does seem to be, maybe it's the nerve endings in the skin, but
mm,
they definitely seem to respond. They don't usually respond to one thing. It usually has to be, multifactorial from, treating the environment, the diet, different supplements and flower remedies. And I also use CBD oil a lot and homeopathic remedies too. So.
the the concern I have of someone listening to this that might have a cat with feline hyperesthesia is that not all CBD is created equal. So, do you have a recommendation of a brand that you prefer?
Well, I usually recommend Pet Relief brand, which is
Pet
spelled
relief.
Releaf, just because it's been around a while.
Okay.
They have some specific formulas, which one of which addresses stress as well. So that's why I recommend that particular one.
Okay. Got it. What are some of the limitations of traditional veterinary medicine in treating feline hyperesthesia, and how does a holistic approach differ? You've
Well, I
also kind of answered it.
Yeah, I feel like, the allopathic approach is very much like kind of using a sledgehammer to treat the problem. And so then you end up with a lot of, drugs and like anti-anxiety drugs, anti-inflammatories, antihistamines, gabapentin, and it's a lot of different medications, whereas it's really suppressing the symptoms, really. Whereas a holistic approach is trying to improve the health of the cat so they don't have it anymore or they're in remission from it. So,
Yes.
well, I think that's the big difference is that we're not just suppressing the symptoms, we're actually trying to rebalance the body and the nervous system and the gut and everything.
Yes. So one of the reasons that I didn't want to go the allopathic route, which was more what I knew at the time that all this happened, is because we had switched vets. My cat when my cats were 11. This happened when he was almost 13, and
Yeah.
beforehand, the vet that we had gone to beforehand just to see him because his alter ego at the vet is Chucky,
Oh,
required he be given gabapentin.
mhm.
And when I gave him gabapentin, um, it it immobilized him, but I still saw the anxiety, fear, everything in his eyes at the vet. It just allowed them to manipulate him how they wanted to. So I didn't see that as a long-term solution for us, and I was also very, very concerned about giving him. I mean, some of these cats in this group are given obscene amounts of milligrams of this stuff. And I'm like, what is that going to do to the kidneys and the liver and whatever over time when you're mass dosing this stuff?
I
So
know. Yeah.
that's and phenobarbital and pregabalin and all of those. It's very concerning to me, um, that approach. And so that's why I want to do interviews with people like you so that they understand that there are other ways to actually get relief and not just have this be an ongoing thing until they die, because I also thought that that was going to be the case, that I wouldn't have my cat back.
Yeah, and it's such a relief when they actually feel better and they not, you know, then plus all the medications affect their behavior too, as well as their, you know, liver and kidneys and, you know, all their other organs and their gut as well. So
Yes,
it's
yes,
intuitive, really. So
yes. Um, so do you work with people like via Zoom or anything, or is it only house calls?
I do phone consultations. I don't use
Okay.
it Zoom, but I'm, you know, I'm open to doing Zoom now that Zoom is more available and everything. But I've done,
Yes.
yeah, I did phone consultations since 1998 because there wasn't a lot of holistic vets then. So,
Yeah.
you know, I did, you know, I still do phone calls with people who don't have a holistic vet in their area or they've worked with me or know someone that's worked with me. So.
Okay. So you can still tailor a treatment plan via phone or Zoom or in person.
Yeah, I can. And, you know, if people are local, I prefer to see them, you know, in person. But especially when we know, you know, they've been to their regular vet wherever they live, and we know that's the most likely diagnosis, then we're treating that animal holistically as an individual. So I can ask lots of questions and get the history and get photos and everything to, you know, treat them remotely.
Are videos helpful? Like, can you identify feline hyperesthesia from a video of a cat?
Well, I think they're definitely helpful, especially if they have the rolling skin and you can actually see it and it's pretty obvious that's what it is, as opposed to just the, you know, chewing and licking and things. So, but it's
Yes.
always good to have, you know, a video because I think that it can be more helpful than a photo. So,
Yes. Would you say there's a typical prognosis for cats with feline hyperesthesia?
I mean, I think it just depends. I mean, there's definitely levels of severity, and I do feel like, you know, they more go into remission than necessarily a total cure because if stress happens or the diet change, they can definitely, you know, regress. So I think, you know, I would say it's, you know, cautiously optimistic, but some cats are very high anxiety and, you know, that can be harder to treat in those particular cats.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, Charlie's almost 16 now, so I wouldn't have thought that he would have made it this long. Only because it was
Yeah.
so horrific in the beginning. And now, I mean, he's belly up on my bed and sleeping soundly, which you could have never convinced me was going to happen 3 years ago.
And I think
Uh,
it's really good that you did all the research and found, you know, different solutions because otherwise you know, be stuck in that pattern with all the medications and who knows how he'd be doing.
yes. And honestly, it was reading through all of the posts. I dedicated like 2 or 3 hours reading through the posts of that Facebook group, thinking like, I can't have this. I can't have this be my life. Many of those folks had to be pilling their cat 3 times a day, and I'm like, what kind of life is that for you or your cat? I'm very thankful that I was led to the right people, because I don't know about my own research, but yes, I found someone similar to you who approached it from a holistic, synergistic standpoint, and that's what changed everything for us.
That's really,
Um,
yeah.
so, what advice would you give to pet owners who are feeling overwhelmed or frustrated by their current situation or treatment plan?
I mean, I would definitely recommend, you know, that joining a Facebook group or, you know, like that is good because not only do they get information, they also get support too. So
Yes.
that helps. And then, you know, good resources. But I try to find a holistic vet too who they can work with directly. And another modality I definitely would use in person is acupuncture too. So
Mm.
yeah.
If they would allow it. I mean, Charlie at that point, he was so chucky that there was no way that was going to happen. And
I,
our new vet didn't require him to be on gabapentin. She was able to get done what she wanted to get done. So then, as we started to detox him, heal his leaky gut, all of that kind of stuff, I brought him in for his regular appointment, and she was like, Jenny, he's like a different cat.
oh,
I,
that's great. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So I
Some
think
Yeah, so
That's huge too.
yeah, no, it is. Some cats, I mean, that's part of the reason I do house calls because at home it's a little bit different and I'm able to do acupuncture, but not every cat, obviously. But I also do cold laser, and you can actually use laser as on the acupuncture points as well instead of using needles too. So, and you can
Yes, thank you.
acupressure too. So,
Thank you for bringing that up because that summer, actually, Charlie and I went and got, well, he got laser 3 times a week, and it really, really helped him. But it was just cold laser, up and down his body. But we have also tried laser on acupuncture points with my vet, and he did and does do well on that. So thank you for bringing
yeah.
that up.
Yeah, so I think that's been a really good alternative to actually just using needles too. And you can do acupressure too, so
Yes,
it definitely all helps. So,
yes. Okay, so is there anything that I didn't ask that you wanted to address?
well, the other thing I do a lot with these, with hyperesthesia cats is homeopathy too, and homeopathic remedies are different dilutive substances that really treat very specific conditions, including the overall constitution of the cat. So that requires, a more detailed history. And then you're looking at behavior, personality, symptoms, whether they like warm or cold, everything about them, what they're scared of, if they're sensitive to noise, and other symptoms, like vomiting or diarrhea or itching or licking or ear issues. And after that, you put all the symptoms together and you come up with a constitutional homeopathic remedy to try and, treat that particular, cat, whether it's hyperesthesia or anything else. So
Yes.
I've had good results with the homeopathic hypericum, which treats neurological issues, and sometimes Arsenicum album, which is a different homeopathic remedy, which is really good for anxiety and restlessness and OCD type behavior. And then
Yes.
other remedies based on the constitution of that particular cat. So,
Okay. Wow. How do flower essences differ from homeopathic remedies? Because they're both homeopathic, correct?
yeah, they're both similar, prepared homeopathically, and they do different things. I find that the flower remedies are really good for more emotionally based issues, which are underlying it. And homeopathy is definitely deeper acting than flower remedies, and it treats the physical really well, and it just treats the whole like energy or chi of the animal to put it back in balance. So, I mean, I'm not really a purist about using homeopathy, so I'll use flower remedies as well, whereas some homeopaths won't. But I do think overall that homeopathy is deeper acting and more powerful than flower remedies. So
Okay. Okay.
I love
Interesting.
both modalities though, and they do work well together, either in combination or following, each other too. So
Oh, good. Okay.
yeah.
Hmm. I hesitate with homeopathy a little bit because I want someone to work with someone like you that understands it and not just go to natural grocers and buy Arsenicum album and give it to them.
Exactly. So I think it's very important because if you speak to a homeopathic vet, they know the difference between Hypericum and Arsenicum album and other
Yes.
remedies, and they, have used, years of experience and training. And also, what it says on the little tubes of the homeopathic remedies at the health food store isn't actually very helpful because it's just a few words that,
Yes.
the FDA makes them put on there. But so it might say vomiting, whereas in fact, that's like one of 100 symptoms that it treats. And you're not looking for that one symptom, you're treating the overall animal.
Yes, that's a very good point. I was introduced to homeopathy on a larger scale when this happened with Charlie. So, yes, it can be deceiving, thinking, this handles bloating and gas and you're treating it for something else. Yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
I couldn't put everything, there's pages of pages in a book about a remedy, and to put 3 words on the side of the tube isn't actually very helpful.
right. Yes. Okay. Well, if I'm watching this interview and I would love to reach out and work with you, where do I find you?
My website is www.petsynergy.com, which is Petsynergy. And I named it Pet Synergy because really all the modalities and everything, even including Western medicine where needed, is, synergistically working together. So,
Yes, it's a very clever name, and I'm
oh,
not surprised that it came from a British person. I always
oh,
think that you're Um, Dr. Anna is from England. I asked her before we started this interview, but I always think that your guys' vocabulary is so much richer than Americans. So I love the name of your website.
well,
I
thank you.
will include it also in the description.
Okay, I
Anything
appreciate it.
anything else I forgot?
I think I think that covers everything. I mean, I would be basically looking at, once you've got the diagnosis, looking at, environment, diet, behavioral modification as well. And then what specific, homeopathics or flower remedies or Chinese herbs or other things that we discussed to add in. So
Yes.
definitely looking at all the different factors and all the different treatment possibilities is good.
Yes, and I assume that you've had cases where you've done these treatments and the cat no longer has these issues.
Yeah, no, definitely. And the other thing I think to be aware of is that they can regress. So people, if you get, then you're like, oh, it's just easier to feed some kibble now, and I'm not going to do the probiotics now because I don't think he needs it. And then they move and they're stressed, they can regress. So I think it's important to realize that and be aware and keep everything as healthy as possible, not just, let them regress if that happens.
Yes. Yeah, okay, thank you for bringing that up. So yeah, they're fine now. I'll just go back to what I was feeding.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then,
Yeah.
of course, they're not fine. So.
Yes. Yes. Makes sense. Well, thank you very, very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I want to have more and more of these, so if you'd be willing, I'd love to have you again.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. And it's really helpful to people, I think, to just get more information about the options that are out there. So,
Yes, yes. All right. Thank you very much.
okay, well,
Bye.
thank you. Bye.